Greetings, bonjour, guten tag, hola. My name is James Falkner. I am the Liferay Community Manager. So I manage our open source community. We have many people in our community, some active, some not so active. Many of you are in our community as well. So today I'll be speaking about application display templates. It's a technology that we've introduced in Liferay 6.2. But before we do that, Olaf mentioned my latest toys. So we have an app, a Symposium app, that I wanted to briefly show you guys because there's some cool features in there. So I'm going to try and do a brief technology demo. We'll see if it works. Okay, and we'll go to my reflector. Let's see if it's going to actually work this time. Let's see. Off and back on. Okay. So this is a live stream from my iPhone here. This works on Android as well, so if you have Android 2. Something or later, which I assume all of you do, it should work. So I'm going to go ahead and install the app briefly. Let's see if I can find it here. So I go to the App Store, search for Liferay Events, download it. It has the agenda for today and tomorrow. There's several different maps. There are a list of our sponsors, a list of contacts for our French colleagues, and a list of activities and a photo stream. You can upload photos that you take during the day if you want to participate. So I've downloaded the app. I'm going to go ahead and fire it up. It loads a list of the events that you can select. Hopefully you can see that text. There's only one event right now that you can select, so I'll go ahead and select France Symposium. It'll ask you for location services. So if you accept that, what you'll get are some interactive engaging pop-ups that appear throughout the event. We've placed small Bluetooth transmitters throughout the different rooms. And when you enter a room, you'll get different kinds of pop-ups that represent things that happen during the day. So like things like about the current agenda. And you have to have Bluetooth turned on, that would help. So if you want to use the event, you turn Bluetooth on, you'll get those pop-ups that you just saw there. You reset it. There you go. So have Bluetooth turned on, have location services turned on within the app, and then you'll be able to get interactive pop-ups about maps, locations, events that are happening during the event today and as well as tomorrow. So check that out if you can. You saw the pop-ups here. I can reset it if you really want to see them again. Okay. So we'll let that go here for a moment. Okay, so this is like a welcome pop-up because it noticed that there are some beacons placed in the back of the rooms as well as one behind the sign. Please do not steal them. And then it knows that you're in this particular room or you're at this event, and so you can get links to maps and other kinds of interesting detail about these sessions. Okay, so download the app, use it when you leave the room. Give feedback. It'll pop up something saying, thank you for participating. Please click here to fill out a feedback form. It allows the event organizers to know if I did a good job or a bad job, as well as other presenters, and so we can fine tune this for you guys for next year. Okay, so there's a pop-up for the event that's just us again. So we will close this off. Don't get distracted and move to the real session. Okay. All right, so application display templates. Let's go back to the presentation here. So application display templates were introduced in Liferay 6.2. It's a way to customize the look, the presentation of any application within Liferay, virtually any application. Many of the out-of-the-box portlets that come with Liferay, like blogs and wikis and asset publisher, you can customize it. But we're really talking about customizing the presentation layer. We're not talking about customizing the business logic of an application or the underlying database, the persistence layer, anything like that. It's all about presentation. So to understand why we added this feature to 6.2, it's helpful to look at another use case for customization, which is the phone case. Many of you have customized phone cases for your mobile device. And everyone likes to have a customized look. Apple made a lot of money by creating an iMac or iMacs in different colors. and they made a lot of money with the gold iPhone versus the silver iPhone. So it's very, very common to customize. Everyone wants to have a different look, whether you want a cheese grater or a creepy hand or a nose that you can pick while you're talking to your friend. Everyone likes to do this. And so you go and you buy these cases, and then you're very happy. But what happens when it's time to upgrade? Well, in 2012, Apple released the new iPhone 5. So can anyone see the difference between iPhone 4 and iPhone 5 in this image? Anyone? Yeah, the mute button, right? The mute button, they moved it about 2 millimeters closer to the volume button. So what did this do? Right? It rendered every single one of these cases obsolete. They no longer fit the phone. If you upgraded your base platform, which is the iPhone, now your customized display doesn't work. So pretty much everyone who had a phone looked a lot like this. And they're like, oh my God, I have to go buy another case. I spent 100 euros on this creepy hand, and now it doesn't work anymore. So it's very disheartening. So this happens in hardware and in software. So let's take a look at another software package that many of you are familiar with. Liferay Portal is a popular open source portal. It has a lot of great features. It's absolutely the best software you could ever have in your entire lifetime. So I encourage all of you to go and download it. In 2012 as well, Liferay released version 6.1. And this brought a new way to customize, a new way to view your data, your web content, your blogs. And so we gave you some options out of the box to change the look of your applications, like Asset Publisher. So this is a screenshot from the Liferay 6.1 Asset Publisher display options. You can see you have several choices here. You have a table, a title list, and so forth. Pretty good, right? You get 4 choices, that's a lot. So if you choose them, you can display your content in various ways, like this is the abstracts view, right? Looks okay, you can see kind of information about events or whatever the particular piece of content is, you get information about it. You can see title lists, so like basically a flat list of titles along with the tags. I'm going to fall off this by the end of the presentation. You can see a list of tags associated with the content. Or you can get the 1995 HTML table view, which is nice as well. And so there's a lot of different options. They're kind of useful, but no one really uses it. It's kind of like the putting one of these in your living room. It's like it works. You can watch television, but it's not very exciting. It's not very enjoying. There's really no interaction. It's just kind of old school technology. So what you really want is something like this, like a very responsive website. You can click around, you can see interesting things that are happening. It's very engaging. Other sites that use responsive design, a lot of the features in HTML5 for parallax scrolling and so forth. Or you can get rid of the boxes entirely. Most portals have like boxes everywhere. Get rid of those, give it a more organic feel, right? All of this you can do with application displays in place. All of these sites, well, this site and the first site, these are all actual live Liferay sites. This is sprouts.com, sprouts.com. You can go there and check it out. It is based on Liferay 6.2. It uses web content. It uses Asset Publisher to show this content, and uses a customized display for showing the actual content. But the content itself is stored in Liferay. So it's a very, very good example of changing the way the content looks without changing the content itself and giving your websites a very nice feel. So we're going to show you how to do that with application display templates. But before we get to ADT, I also want to show you what we said in 6.1. How do you customize display in 6.1? So what we say in our documentation, one option is to copy and paste Liferay's code. Don't do this. It's really not a good idea. Why is it not a good idea? Because that code is written by someone in Liferay using private Liferay interfaces. This is a screenshot from our documentation that says, go ahead and copy Liferay's JS keys and make your modifications and just use that. You can probably get it to work, but what happens at upgrade time when Liferay changes those interfaces that code uses? Your first clue that you're getting into trouble is this box right here. The moment you copy our code into your development environment, you'll get lots of errors. Right? That should be a dead giveaway that you're getting into somewhere you don't want to go. Because that code is using things that your development environment does not know about. And so it should be a red flag saying, stop. So in 6.1, we actually introduced a new way to do customization. Now you don't have to copy and paste code. You can just do surgery on code. You can get your knife out and make small changes to our code and leave the Liferay code alone. And you do this with this thing called Liferay util buffer. Don't do this. This is actually even worse than the previous one, and I'll show you why. Here's an example of a piece of code. This is actually from, I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to throw them under the bus. But this is code that modifies our create account screen. It's very common when people create a new account. It shows like first name, last name, country. This is modifying that code to add another field. So step one of this code up here is to use this Liferay util buffer to actually render the page, to actually send it through the JSP rendering process and get me back the HTML that I would have gotten if I had placed on the page. This basically removes the last JavaScript script on the page. You should be thinking this right now. What happens if Liferay adds another script at the end of that page in the next version? This is going to remove it. You have no idea what it's going to do. So step two, replace some text, right? Search and replace. Really, really bad idea, especially on rendered code that has executable code that has variable names. This code attempts to deal with localization by getting the word save in the local language and then replacing it with the word create. But what happens if the Dutch version of save is actually a variable name? It's going to replace that executable code and it's just going to fail all over the place, and you're going to have no idea why. So again, Captain Picard is a really bad idea. Okay, so application display templates. So let's do a demo before I show you the real stuff. Let's see what happens. Okay, so let me reboot. No, I'm just kidding. This is actually, this is my homage to the demo guides. Every time I do a demo, something goes wrong. So this is my attempt to kind of shoo them away. Okay, so let's switch to Safari here. And I don't have I can't see my screen. I guess I should turn on display mirroring. See, this is the demo part that goes wrong, right? Here. Hey, okay. Let me go back to my browser, which is now all crazy. Okay, so this is Liferay 6.2. This is out of the box Liferay 6.2. I'm going to show you a brief demonstration of application display templates and what they can be used for. So let me go to the front page again. I'm going to add a new page here. Logs. Logs. Okay, add a page called logs. And I'm going to add two applications to it. One is going to be the logs portlet, which you're all familiar with, I hope. And then one is going to be the tag cloud. Now I've pre-created some content for this site, which you can see there. So there's a list of tags. So this tag cloud shows me all of the tags associated with the content on this site. These are the different blog posts that you can see. Okay, so I'm going to customize the display. Tag cloud, it's kind of nice, but I want it to be awesome. So I am going to change its display template. I'm going to go to configuration. You can see the selector here. I can choose which display template to use. I'm going to add a new one. And I'm not going to add a new one. Let's try that again. Okay. It's because it's the mobile. the screen is small that so small that Liferay's responsive design kicks in and moves it to a mobile OS. Okay, so I'm going to add a new tag. I'm going to call it tag sphere. This is the cool editor for application display templates. You can choose which language to write the template. You can add a description, and then the actual template itself is here. This is the editor. This is the new editor in Liferay 6.2 if you've not seen this. You have a list of easy-to-use clickable things over here. You can click here, and it generates the code for your template. This is a free marker template. You can also use velocity. And then you just insert whatever you want here to use that code. You can also get access to the different variables that are associated with the Liferay itself, like the HTTP requests or the group local service if you want to get information about the groups. Pretty much anything in Liferay can be accessed from a script, and these give you easy to remember things about it. You can even do auto completion. So if I said dollar request, notice the auto completion dot, and then you can get. You don't have to memorize all of the different APIs of Liferay. You get it directly in here. Very nice. Okay, so I have a pre-created template I'm going to copy and paste in from my development environment here. We're going to look at this app in more detail in a moment, but for now, I'm just going to take this code, copy it into here. So this is my 40 lines application display template. Notice it does, it basically takes all of the entries, lists them, and then generates HTML code for them. And I'll save, I think I have to give it, already give it a name, save, and then go and choose that template. And now, I have a nice spherical template. Actually, let me make that a little bit, page a little bit bigger. Okay, you can see it's a rotating sphere of tags. You can change the number of tags. Let's do 50. So you can see more interesting tags. Okay, there's a whole bunch of them in here. You can click on them, and they center, and then it changes the display over here through inter-portlet communication to show the tags associated with the link that you clicked. So a lot of the things that you can do in a real portlet can also be done in this script. So let's look here. So you can see I'm basically setting a render parameter so that when I click on a link, it then sends a message to the other portlet saying, show me only the content with that particular tag. So it's very easy to do this. You also have access to tag lives. So if you're familiar with JSPs, we have a lot of libraries in Liferay that are written with tag libraries. So you can see the top line there accesses the portlet tag library using that special nomenclature. And this is all documented in our official documentation, so you don't need to remember this. Okay, so that's the tag cloud. You can also do this with other kinds of applications. So for example, if you wanted to do an art gallery, like I'll add an art gallery page, and I'm going to add the media gallery app, which is an out-of-the-box application that comes with Liferay 6.2. Here. I'm going to edit my page to be one column, so it's going to be more room to it. Okay, so I have a one column page with media gallery, and I have some art in this folder. And I want to make sure that I only see that art. So the first thing I'm going to do is just change the root folder to the art folder. Save that, see what the result is. So now it only shows me the pieces of art in my gallery. And this, again, is kind of a nice display. You've got some thumbnails, you've got some navigation, you've got a CSS bug on the far right that puts that button not where it should be. So I'm going to change this briefly to another application display template again. So we go down here, click Manage Display Templates, Add Template. click it properly. Okay, and we will call this one masonry. If you followed Eduardo Garcia's blog, you'll know what this is. You can copy and paste again from the. So this one again is a very similar concept. In fact, it's identical, except it's a different application. And this basically goes through all of the pictures and sticks them in a special list, which is then processed by a JavaScript library, which makes it look nice. So again, you can do this with basically any application that you want. So figure this one. Click my new display template and save. Okay, so now I have a nicer view, kind of a more an art gallery with a nice background. When I mouse over these, I can see the description. I can also rate. So I use a tag library to inject these ratings directly from Liferay. So again, you can do this with tags. You can do this with media gallery, with asset publisher, blogs, wikis, and several others. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation. Get rid of our demo bug, hopefully. Okay, so again, you're overriding the display layer of the app. You're not overriding the persistence or the logic in the application itself. So how is this actually implemented? Well, as you can imagine, when I install an application for the first time, it shows me the default view. And then if I go and select something else, it will then change to that display. And it does that with a programming paradigm called if-else. You've all heard of it. So if a template has been chosen, use it. Otherwise, use the default here. So it's very easy, very simple. For all applications that use application display templates, you will find this code. So what are the benefits here? So the benefits are you get rid of all of those weird dependencies from doing JSP overrides. You no longer rely on Liferay's HTML or CSS or JavaScript or the order of a particular piece of code in our JSPs or the file and directory hierarchy. All of these things are private. They are not something that you want to depend on because they change from release to release. So using application display templates gets you out of that bad place. Painful upgrades are a thing of the past. Well, for application display templates, maybe there are other upgrade issues you may run into, but it results in more sustainable, more robust code that will not break in an upgrade. It also uses lightweight scripting, so if you know velocity or free marker, you can use it right out of the box. You have access to all of Liferay services like JSP, tag lives, Liferay services, interport communication. There's no compiling step. There's no developer. There's no need to compile. There's no need to deploy. You do not have to add a portlet to your app server or do anything like that. You simply create the template and save it, and it's ready to go right out of the box. So that results in, as you can imagine, a much faster debug cycle because you no longer have to compile. You no longer have to deploy. You just save. Much faster to prototype. It reuses our dynamic data model framework in Liferay, so there are features that are in every framework in Liferay, like the ability to import and export, the ability to generate service interfaces, local and remote, so that you can programmatically access the template itself. You can deliver new templates using code instead of having to click all of those buttons that I was clicking. And so that results in a more enterprise way of designing an application. You can check your templates into source code management like GitHub or Subversion or CVS or whatever you're using. And you can create plugins that can be repeatedly deployed in a repeatable fashion. This is really important in an enterprise setting to not kind of mess with the runtime production environment. You want to do everything in the development environment and package it so that it's easy to recreate if you need to. And this gives you that ability. Okay, so I showed you some of the out-of-the-box apps in Liferay that use ADT. Now let's look at a custom application. If you are writing an application in Liferay, which all of you, many of you are doing, and you want to be able to use ADTs, or you want other people to be able to write templates for your application, how do you do that? So it's a 4-step process, very simple. Step 1 is to create a template handler. And we'll see this in code in a moment. It's basically a Java class which exposes different configuration options for different configurations for your application. It lets Liferay know that your application can use ADTs. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to add a new permission, to declare that your application supports ADTs. This allows administrators to define permissions and associate users with ADTs so that if you have administrators who they don't have full access to the system, but you want to give them the ability to create ADTs, you can do that way. Step 3 is to expose that configuration option. You remember that drop-down where you select which application display template you wish to use? That is driven by this. So you need a way for users to select which ADT to use. If you're using JSP technology, then you can use our built-in tag library for that selector, which in turn uses Allo UI, which in turn uses HTML5. If you're using some other display like Vaadin or GWT or JSF, you can also use the same. You have to do a bit of reverse engineering because we have not yet documented what this tagline does. But it essentially makes a service call to the DDM layer. So you can kind of reverse engineer it if you're using something other than JSPs. Okay, so you expose the configuration, and then the last step is when your portlet goes to render itself, it needs to use the ADT that was selected. So it's either, this is the if-else that I was talking about. So you have an if-else. You say if the user has chosen an ADT, then use that, otherwise do your default. So it's very easy to create an ADT. So what can you do with this layer in your application? You can create, you remember what I was doing earlier when I was cutting and pasting into the editor? On the left side is a list of very handy clickable things that users can click and it will generate code. And your application can put stuff here. You can create custom context variables, which when I click this, it generates that code over there. You can programmatically generate the code at runtime by clicking this, called programmatic code generation. This is just a declaration. This is actually generated at runtime. And you'll see that in the example. You can also deploy templates for users in your app. So if I want to put my application on the marketplace and it uses ADTs, I can deliver some pre-created ADTs for my users through my application. Okay, so demo time, one more time. So this is the last demo. Let's go to my Eclipse. So I've created an application here in Eclipse called Visitor App, and this is a customer engagement application. It basically records, suppose you own like a set of stores, a set of retail stores in France. You have different locations throughout the country. This application, you can register your store locations, you can register your customers, or when they walk into your store with their mobile device, they can be detected, or your app can detect, just like we're using here at this event, they can detect that a customer has walked into a store and report that visit. And that's what this app does. So it's a service builder application. And so let me first show you the service itself. So how many of you are familiar with Service Builder, by the way? Service Builder and Liferay. Okay, pretty good number of you. Good. So this should not be too unfamiliar to you. So I have a service.xml. I'll show you the overview. I have 3 entities. I have a customer, a store location, and a customer store visit. This is like Service Builder 101. These are very simple entities. They have some columns. The customer one, of course, tracks customer. We have like a name, a picture, an email, and then all of the stuff that Liferay generates. The store itself, that represents our store location, has a name and address, bottom there. And then finally, the merge or the join of those two is the customer store visit, which has a reference to the customer and a reference to the store and a date. So whenever a customer walks into a store, a new entry is created in that database to represent that data. And so this application visualizes that data. It shows you what is in, which customers are visiting your stores. Okay, so that's the service. There are also other random Liferay bits, like Liferay display, that everyone has to have. This tells you where it goes in the menu. So we'll skip those, and we're going to look at the 4 steps that I just mentioned briefly. So step 1 was to create a template handler. So my template handler is here. So let's look at this code. It's actually not that difficult. It's a very short class, or a very small class. Can you guys read that okay? Okay. Yeah, I used to be able to zoom in, but oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll just scroll. Actually, let me see if I can make that bigger. General appearance. Where's the editor? Let's see. Which one is this? Any Eclipse experts in here? Can you tell me where the size of the font is? Oh, here, colors and fonts. I think I would know this. Never actually changed the font size in Eclipse. Okay, Java text editor font. All right, let's do it. Let's see. Let's write 18. It's like huge. See, it didn't even change it. Okay, the text font. Okay, there we go. Okay, bigger, yay. Okay, so this is my application display template handler. I'm not going to go through each of these, but you're basically just declaring strings that associate the ADT functionality in your app with the app itself. Okay, so you have the interesting bits are the get template variable groups method here. This is where you define those custom references. So here's the sum variable that you saw in the screenshot. That's defined here. You can add variables. You can add programmatic variables, which is what you see down here, by implementing a particular class. This is the programmatic stuff that's generated down here. And you can put anything here. So this code is actually what's responsible for generating that left side clickable shortcut. This is just for generating shortcuts. It doesn't actually execute at the time the template is rendered. It executes at the time the editor is shown. So you can put anything in here. So I have a couple of generators here, and I also have the actual data from the app itself, the actual data that the app represents, the customers and the store visits. You stick those in here as well. And so when you do that, you'll see what happens. Okay, so it's a very simple class. It's only about 100 lines long. That's because I have all this demo stuff in here. So that's step 1. Step 2 are the permissions, and that is even simpler than this one. You basically just, in your resource actions file, which you see here, you basically just add this one line. Add portlet display something. That's all you have to do. So very simple. Step 3 is the configuration. So I have a JSP that I am using for configuration somewhere in here. Here. So you can see I use the same tag lib for generating that little selector. That's all this does is just generate that selector. And it's an AUI form. This is a cuttable and pastable thing that is in our documentation. It's a standard way to show configuration for users. And then lastly, the view. So I have a view JSP. And you can see I have an if-else here. Choose when. So when the display template is chosen, meaning the ID is greater than 0, then at this point, this is when the actual data is injected into the context for the script to use. So I get a list of customers, I get a list of store locations, and then I put them in the context using this context objects object. And then I call the render function, and I pass the context to the render option. It takes the ADT, it combines it with the context objects, and then renders it, and then you see the result. Okay, so that is the 4-step process. So there are lots of other things that I've put in here. All of this code is on GitHub. There's a pointer on the last slide. There's also a pointer on the first slide. Because I'm doing the programmatic deployment of these seven ADTs, most of them written in FreeMarker, one of them written in Velocity. These are programmatically deployed at runtime, so I'm going to do that right now. So this is a Maven project, so I'm just simply going to double click here. I've already built the service, so I'm just going to double click, and this is where the demo usually fails. So it's going to build this app, deploy it, hot deploy it to Liferay, and hopefully it will work. So okay, it looks like it's finished deploying. So let's go back to the browser here. So I'm going to create 2 new pages on my site. I'm going to create a visitor app, and oops, oh, that one. Visitor app. Okay, and I'm going to create another visitor app admin. Okay, so I created 2 pages. So I'm going to first go to the admin page. I now hopefully have my 2 applications have been deployed here in the ADT visitor app group. So I can just simply drag and drop. Okay, so this, I wanted the other one first. Okay, visitor app admin. So this is the admin. This shows me the store locations, their name, their address, and then you can edit them. I can edit or delete. I also have a list of customers, so I can see a name, their email address, and I ran out of time to stick their picture in there, but it's not that difficult to put another column to show their picture. Okay, so that's pretty exciting, isn't it? I have about 1,000 different, I have about 100 customers and 27 store locations. So let's look at the visits themselves. So I will add to the app page itself. I'm going to add this guy. Okay, so this is a list of the actual customer visits. So you can see which customer, which store location, and when they visited. And there's a list of about 1,000 different customer visits. You can put a whole bunch more in there. In fact, if you have several store locations, you will have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of visits. All of it easily handled by Liferay, and it's awesome scalability. So. But you can see a list here. But that's okay, right? I can see that people are visiting my stores, but I don't really know who I should be really getting to know. As a community manager, I have the top 10 community members on speed dial in Skype. And if you are a retail owner, you want to know who your best customers are. So I wrote an ADT for this particular app, which does that. So let's go and change the ADT for this page. I'm going to add a new custom store visit template. You'll notice this string here was part of my template handler. That's where these strings are used. So I'm going to create my custom app. And this is my customized help text, also part of the handler. So you can basically customize this entire editor. Here's that sum variable I was telling you about. If I click it, it generates some bar. I also have some helpful, like the programmatic ones here. I can click that. Just put that in for demonstration purposes. You can click the customer list, you can get the store location list, and then the other stuff that Liferay gives you. So I'm going to copy and paste my script. I think I programmatically deliver this one, but I'm just going to do it the easy way. So I almost have time. Okay, so here's my ADT. It's about 230 lines long, and you'll see what it does here. This is the demo here. Okay. So I'll go ahead and choose my new customer map. So instead of seeing a boring list of customers, I now see a list, I can visualize where my stores are with little, this Google map along with some markers here. If I click on one, I can get a list of all of the customers that have visited my store, and I can see who has visited my store most. And I could like, email. You click on that, you can send them an email. Thanks for your support, You visited 100 times. Congrats. No. Okay, so you get the idea. So you can look at your different store locations throughout the country. All of them generate a different graph. If I click on one of these other guys, you can see there's a different list. You can see their names at the bottom. It's probably too small to see. But anyways, it's exact same data as you saw before, except displayed differently. So if I go back to my default, and these are the ones that I programmatically installed as part of the top deploy. So right, it's just this exact same data, but just like recycled and remixed into something different. Okay, so that's the customized app. So again, that's all on GitHub if you want to download it and use it, inspect it, see how it works. A couple more slides here. Warning, it's not a replacement for Java. If you're writing real enterprise apps with all kinds of data, persistence, tons of entities, tons of documents, you're generally going to do that in Java. ADT technology is really useful for small display technology changes. You don't want to write an entire app in Velocity, for example. Okay, there's some other concerns for security and performance. So those scripts that I wrote, they have complete access to the framework. You can restrict people so that they don't have complete access. You can also, for performance reasons, stop the cache checking so that your scripts only load once and never get reloaded and are always used again and again. So it quickens performance. Okay, so the last slide, I think, Velocity versus FreeMarker. FreeMarker is more awesome than Velocity, but Velocity has its uses. It's very compact syntax, but there's a lot more power in the FreeMarker. I highly recommend it, but this is not a bad choice. Okay, lastly, the experts. I did not write ADT. These guys wrote it. These guys know it even better than me. Eduardo Garcia, in particular, has a couple of blog posts that are really handy for what I just talked about. And then there's a good presentation from DevCon last year. There will probably be another one this year, so I highly recommend you all sign up for our DevCon in Germany this year in the fall. Okay, merci. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm a couple minutes over. Again, here's the GitHub link to the code if you want to check it out, and here's my email address and Twitter. So, merci beaucoup.